Is that any better? No?
Testing, testing. 1, 2, 3. Here you go.
Okay, I'm not used to speaking into a microphone. Thank you all for coming this afternoon. We're going to have a few brief comments, and after these comments, we'll take a few questions. We'll be limited on the things that we can talk about, but we just wanted to answer everyone's questions at one time. Pursuant to Article 2.03 of the Texas Code of Criminal Procedure, prosecutors must bring notice to the grand jury of violations of the law, neglect or failure of duty on the part of any officer. Together with the Travis County District Attorney's Office and the Austin Police Department's Special Investigations Unit, we brought this information to a Williamson County grand jury. On June 19th of 2020, Ms. Moore and I issued a joint statement informing the community of our shared purpose in obtaining long-deserved answers for the family of Javier Ambler. As that investigation continued, the Williamson County grand jury heard from 19 different witnesses. On Friday, the grand jury for the 277th District Court of Williamson County, Texas, returned an indictment for tampering with physical evidence in the investigation of the death of Mr. Ambler against Williamson County Sheriff Robert Chody and Williamson County Assistant Attorney Jason Nasur. This offense is a third-degree felony, which carries a punishment range of 2 years to 10 years in the Texas Department of Criminal Justice Institutional Division or probation, and up to a $10,000 fine. Both Sheriff Chody and Jason Nasur were arrested and released on bond earlier today. And they will have their first court date on November 30th of 2020. I want to remind everyone here, Texas law requires that we put all the names of the witnesses that testified in grand jury on the indictments themselves. So for those of you that have copies of the indictment, all 19 witnesses' names are listed on the indictment. It's important that we want to remind everyone that those witnesses are not to be harassed, coerced, threatened, intimidated in any way, as that is in and of itself another felony offense. And by any person, those witnesses need to be left alone. With that, I'm going to turn over the next section to our Travis County District Attorney, Margaret Moore, to let you know what the developments are on the Travis County side.
Can you identify yourself, please?
Oh, sorry. My name is Sean Dick. I'm the Williamson County District Attorney.
Good afternoon. I'm Margaret Moore, Travis County District Attorney. That's M-A-R-G-A-R-E-T-M-O-O-R-E. As District Attorney Dick said, this has been a joint investigation, and I want to thank the Williamson County District Attorney's Office for all of the courtesies that they have shown our office. I believe it's been in the best interest of both counties that we have been working together. Later on in October, a Travis County District Court will call and panel a special grand jury. Judge Cliff Brown has set the date for that impaneling in the third week of October. And after they are seated, the first order of business will be to continue the presentation of evidence regarding the tampering case that has now been indicted here in Williamson County. That grand jury will then be in a position to begin hearing evidence as to the death of Javier Ambler after the first of the year. This has been a very lengthy process, and I know to some people it seems too lengthy, but there's an important piece of evidence, a critical piece of evidence that has to be about which the public has a right to know. So that grand jury, as I said, will be impaneled at the latter part of October, and we'll begin hearing evidence, we hope, the beginning in November. Sean, I'm going to let Sean answer what questions you've got for him, and then I'll be standing by.
John,
Yes, we'll take a few questions.
in regards to the indictment, do you have physical evidence, or is the indictment based solely on testimony?
I can't go into specifics about what it's based on, but as you can tell by the indictment, what we're after are video and audio recordings, obviously based out of the television show Live PD.
No, I understand that, but in regards to any type of actual tampering in justifying the indictment, is there a text message, an email, or is it based on testimony from someone saying that the sheriff did this?
So again, we're going to have to be careful because I can't talk about specifics of the case. Our ethical rules prevent us from really getting into details. That will all become apparent and available as the proceedings go on. But suffice it to say, we spent several months putting all this together and presenting a large number of witnesses to the grand jury. And a grand jury in Williamson County believed there was probable cause to believe that these offenses were committed within Williamson County. It will continue in Travis County to determine what offenses were committed in Travis County.
Can you say more about the source indictment and his involvement? Is his involvement simply from the night of the incident or afterwards? What's his involvement?
So a Williamson County grand jury had to determine that there was venue in Williamson County to believe that crimes were also committed in Williamson County. And so I know publicly it's been released that Mr. Nasur was on scene the night of Mr. Ambler's death. But obviously the Williamson County grand jury has determined there were acts taken in Williamson County that led to their charging with tampering with evidence.
Have you spoken to the Ambler family at all? And if so, can you share their reaction upon the indictment?
So I haven't had the opportunity to speak with the Ambler family. That relationship was developed with the Travis County DA's office, so they would have to kind of address that issue at the appropriate time.
The indictment says conceal or destroy.
With respect to Sheriff Chody, do you have any evidence that he destroyed any audio, video recording, ordered it to be destroyed? What's the level of involvement here?
Well, I think they've both been charged as an individual or as a party to this offense. And so that's as far as I can say right now.
Sean, can you talk about when this might go to trial and anything specifically about in what way tampering occurred?
So I can't talk about specifics about how the tampering occurred at the moment, but certainly that's evidence that we'll all lay out at some point. As far as the trial, it's a little premature. You know, obviously the courthouse is already dealing with coronavirus and the issues that go along with coronavirus. So we do have a setting right now for November 30th. That setting will be to sort of determine the timetable from that point moving forward. And right now that hearing is probably scheduled to be a virtual hearing.
Sean, are you concerned about the timing of this indictment? This is a highly publicized case that people know very well about. Got an election coming on, but the first preliminary hearing, when we're finally going to actually see actual evidence, what it is, isn't going to be until after the election. Are you concerned that, you know, I'll think, why not wait until after the election?
Sure. You know, I've thought long and hard about timing, right? First of all, let's make it very clear, we didn't choose this timing. You know, this incident happened a long time ago. The Williamson County District Attorney's Office was just notified in May of 2020 of the death of Javier Ambler. At that time, we started to work with the Travis County DA's office. We found some information in June of 2020 that led us to start an investigation together. And so we've done that diligently, as rapidly as we could. There is no right answer, because do you either hold on to this information through an election or do you do it before an election? And you just can't let that dictate your timetable. You have to do what's right according to the law and the evidence. And all the evidence has been presented to a Williamson County grand jury. We didn't have anything additional to present to a Williamson County grand jury, and they've returned an indictment. So the timing is not chosen. It's just the timing that it is, and we're just following the law and the evidence.
In his first statement since being released from prison, from jail, he did say that he felt this was engineered by y'all. What's your response to that?
You know, obviously people that are charged with indictments always want to come up with some explanation or some sinister plot behind it. I think anyone that knows me knows that I'm driven very much by what's right and what's wrong and what the evidence tells us. And so that's what we've been, that's what I was elected to do, was to make sure that those that we believe have committed crimes are held accountable in an appropriate fashion. So I'm just here doing my job. And let's remember, this is, you know, a Williamson County grand jury. Citizens have heard evidence and have returned an indictment.
After so many of those people heard that evidence, all those witnesses, the 19 witnesses heard all that evidence, how long did it that indictment? What was the time frame?
The investigation's been going on for several months. I can't get into specifics about grand jury and how that is conducted, but obviously our investigation's been going on for 3 months. It took 19 witnesses, so you can imagine what kind of time frame that would take.
Who notified you about Javier Alvarez's death?
Actually, the first conversation we had was with Mr. Guilford, the chief of the Civil Rights Division in Travis County. To be honest with you, I think what happened is Sheriff Chody decided to go back on the live PD in April of 2020, and I made some comments, about the television show returning and what we would need in our office to prosecute those cases. And I think that's the first time that the Travis County DA's office realized that we knew a lot about live PD, how to obtain evidence from live PD, and how that process would work. And that's when Mr. Guilford reached out to us for help, honestly, in just trying to secure that evidence.
Can you just talk about the decision to bring charges or investigate or not live PD since they were contested, presumably?
So I'm sorry, I heard the first part of the question. I didn't hear the second part.
I'm just asking about the investigation involving live PD. Did the investigation at any point target live PD, and was there a deliberate decision not to target?
So I can only speak to Williamson County. Obviously, there's a pending investigation that's going on in Travis County. My interest was not in pursuing a company out of New York. My interest was in to find out what happened here in Williamson County and determine what actions were taken here in Williamson County. So obviously, there's actions to engage live PD, but as far as Williamson County was concerned, that wasn't something that we were pursuing.
Mr. Dick, the Texas Government Code gives you explicit authority to petition the district court for removal, which could lead to the suspension of an elected official, a sheriff in this case. Do you have any plans to petition the district court if Mr. Chody does not decide to step down while this gets cleared up? Do you have any plans to seek his removal or suspension?
I don't have any plans to seek Sheriff Chody's removal. My intention is to pursue the criminal charges that we have and to present the case that a grand jury has indicted on to a Williamson County jury.
Is it a good idea that he continue leading in this capacity while he's indicted on a felony, moves through the process?
You know, as to whether or not Sheriff Chody should continue as a sheriff, I'll leave that for other people to decide. My job is simply to pursue the law and the evidence in this case.
Who was your lead investigator in this case, please?
So it was the Austin Police Department Special Investigations Unit.
No one from your office that conducted the investigation?
Well, so it's a little bit of a misnomer, but my office can't really conduct investigations. I have 7 investigators to handle about 3,400 cases a year. So we depend on law enforcement agencies to do the investigations. So.
Has anything come from investigations of the sheriff's deputies?
So I'm sorry, I don't know the question.
Have y'all done any investigations as far as the deputies are involved in their use of force?
Oh, so you're referring to the use of force? Those are ongoing investigations right now.
Can you say, this may be an obvious question, but the tampering with evidence part, can you say whether the evidence is the video, is it connected to the video from live PD?
Yes, the evidence that we're looking for is the video and audio evidence from live PD.
Sean, to your knowledge, oh, go ahead. Didn't mean to step on you.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was just hoping that we could hear the next course of events will involve Travis County. I don't know if we were going to have an opportunity to ask.
Let's let them finish with
I'm
him
sorry.
first.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, sure. Two-part question. One, is Nassour still in the county attorney's office? Two, to your knowledge, has a sitting Williamson County sheriff ever been indicted on a felony charge before?
As to Mr. Nassour and his current status of employment, I don't know. You'd have to speak to Mr. Hobbs. He's the county attorney. I know that Mr. Nassour's position was eliminated in this year's budget, but as to whether or not Mr. Nassour was going to be moved to another position within the county attorney's office, I don't know. And I'm sorry, what was the second question?
To your knowledge, has a Williamson County sheriff in office ever been indicted on a felony before?
I don't know the answer whether another sheriff has been indicted in Williamson County before. I know when I first moved here, we did have one of our previous sheriffs was removed from office.
Maspero?
Yes, Sheriff Maspero. Anything else for me? All right, Ms. Moore.
I'll take a few questions, but this is a very much an ongoing investigation, and we won't be able to go into specifics at all.
More, again, this is in connection with Javier Ambler's death. Have you spoken to Javier Ambler's family, or do you have anything to say to Javier Ambler's family?
We have met with the Ambler family, and we are in communication with their attorney.
Margaret, how does the tampering factor into the Travis County case? The tampering took place in Williamson County. Why are you looking at it?
Well, we believe that there are facts supporting tampering in Travis County as well. So the reason this has to come first is because the live PD video would be wholly material to the investigation into the use of force.
APD took control of the scene shortly after arriving. Have you determined why the Austin Police Department did not secure the video? The crew was there. The crew was there with APD, and the crew was allowed to leave under APD's custody. So have you determined why they were allowed to walk away with the videotape by APD?
That's a specific I'm not going to be able to go into today.
Do you know why?
We're conducting a very thorough investigation. Next.
Sheriff Chody to Travis County to testify before the grand jury.
We traditionally extend an invitation to targets to testify if they wish to.
Do you expect, given what you have historically with the level of cooperation, do you expect to see Sheriff Chody before that grand jury?
I have no idea. He's got a lawyer. I'm sure we'll be discussing it.
Barbara, do you hope to have an answer before you leave office in November? And if not, what is your hope after that?
My expectation is that this particular aspect of the case could easily be resolved. I mean, the grand jury portion could be completed before I leave office. I have already announced that I think it appropriate for the incoming district attorney to present the use of force case. Thank you.
And there you have it. Travis County District Attorney Margaret Moore and Williamson County District Attorney Sean Dick holding a joint news conference about an indictment returned by a grand jury against Williamson County Sheriff Robert Chody and another official with the county. And we are learning about those charges earlier today. Interestingly of note, Williamson County Sean Dick, who you see right there, had explained that kind of the details about what was included and how to proceed with a grand jury and what all of those kind of proceedings detail and include. And what he was saying is that in this particular case, he and the Travis County District Attorney announced in June of this year that they were going to be holding a joint effort to investigate the death of Javier Ambler, who was involved with a chase with Williamson County deputies last year, and then it went from in Williamson County into North Austin, and whenever that chase came to an end, Javier Ambler was tased, and he ended up dying from that particular encounter with deputies. So this is where that all stemmed from. And on the Williamson County side, the grand jury heard from 19 witnesses in total. And then on Friday, an indictment was returned against Robert Chody, the Williamson County Sheriff, and Jason Nassour, who is the general counsel for the Williamson County Attorney's Office. Both of those men, Chody and Nassour, have been booked into jail today and have been released, according to the Williamson County District Attorney just a few moments ago. We did receive Sheriff Chody's booking photo, and I'm going to show you that to you now. He is facing a third-degree felony charge of evidence tampering, again, related to the Javier Ambler death case. we are going to leave up this stream for a little bit because coming up at 3:30, Sheriff Robert Chody is holding his own news conference. So please stay with us. The sheriff is going to be talking after he was booked into jail earlier today and was released on a $10,000 bond. We are awaiting details about Jason Nassour and what his bond amount was, but according to the Williamson County District Attorney, both Sheriff Chody and Jason Nassour have been released from jail at this time. We wanted to include this information about the Williamson County grand jury process, and again, it heard from 19 witnesses and returned that indictment against those two men. In Travis County, the outgoing district attorney, Margaret Moore, she said that later in October, a grand jury is going to be impaneled, and evidence regarding the death of Javier Ambler will be presented to them starting in November. So again, they were going to be looking at these tampering claims that Williamson County looked into as well. So we will have to follow along with that as that process gets underway. Again, Travis County Grand Jury is going to look into this particular case starting in late October, so late next month. We are awaiting, here in just a moment, a news conference to be called, and Williamson County Sheriff Robert Chody is going to be speaking in front of his office, which is about 2 blocks away from where the district attorneys were speaking just a few moments ago. So very interesting that this is happening literally within footsteps of each other. So I'm going to bring up one more time Sheriff Chody's booking photo that happened earlier today. He was already released after posting $10,000 bond. We are hearing reaction pour in now as we await his news conference to talk about this. And Sheriff Chody in a tweet, and I'm going to try to bring that up too, and when he was announcing his own news conference, was saying that he claimed that this was engineered by the district attorneys, and Williamson County's district attorney Sean Dick spoke directly to that, saying that this is not an effort to go after Sheriff Chody. This is to follow where the evidence has gone. So I want to show you really quickly the announcement from Sheriff Chody. So he says right here, Williamson County Sheriff Robert Chody will hold a news conference today to discuss the indictment engineered by Williamson County District Attorney Sean Dick, and the DA responded to that just a few moments ago. Another reaction we had come in was from the state representative who represents part of Williamson County, and he had previously called for Sheriff Chody's resignation. But if you take a look right here, this is from Representative James Tallarico, a Democrat in Round Rock, but his district extends from Round Rock all the way to Taylor. He says, since I learned about the senseless murder of Javier Ambler in June, I have consistently called for Sheriff Chody's resignation. This is the same sheriff who cut the county's award-winning crisis intervention team, promoted white supremacists in his department, and gave gift cards to his deputies for using force. He does say that he is writing legislation that will ban Texas police departments from working with reality TV shows like Live PD. Interestingly, the Javier Ambler case in particular is where all this stems from. And there was a Live PD crew with Williamson County deputies the night that happened, the night that he died in deputy custody back in March of last year. The TV show Live PD has said that they do not have the video of this particular arrest or encounter with deputies. It has somehow been deleted, according to the production company behind that reality show, and that's where a lot of consternation has been drawn by these district attorneys. They would like to see that evidence, and a part of the indictment that was handed down by the grand jury includes that particular claim. So it's something for us to follow for sure. Give me 1 second. I'm going to check to see if the live signal is up outside the Williamson County Sheriff's Office, because now we are waiting to hear from Sheriff Chody himself after he was indicted, booked into jail, and has now been released. So stay with us just for a few moments. I'm going to check to see if that feed is up, and we'll maybe take that here in just a second. As you can see now, Will Dupree once again here in the KXAN Live studio. If you're just joining us, we are expecting a news conference here shortly just outside the Williamson County Sheriff's Office, and Sheriff Robert Chody is going to be speaking about this felony charge he's now facing of evidence tampering in the Javier Ambler death case. This is supposed to get started here in just about 5 minutes or so, so we are expecting Sheriff Chody to walk out and up to the podium there and answer questions and most likely provide a statement about this. He is claiming that this indictment is engineered by the Williamson County District Attorney, and a few moments ago the DA addressed that directly after being asked about it by a reporter there and said that that is not the case. So again, we are about to hear from Sheriff Robert Chody. Our camera's moving around as all the reporters are getting set up there, awaiting him to come and make his statement. And there you can see an attorney for Sheriff Chody. Let's take a listen.
Limit what I can say about a case pending, so I'm going to stay within those rules. I'm also entitled to respond to statements made by the prosecutors, so I will do that. First of all, let me tell you. Pardon? Yeah. First, let me say that this indictment is 100% baloney. He is not guilty. Sheriff Chody gave no order, no direction, instituted no policy, had nothing to do with the destruction of any live PD videos, period. There is not a single shred of evidence that says otherwise. You know, I never like, of course, for a client to be charged, but I don't know if I've ever been as angry about it as I am this one. What has happened here is the Javier Ambler case lay on somebody's desk for months and didn't become topical until George Floyd's death. And then through press reporting, it became an issue in a political campaign. And somebody had to explain why nothing had been done. The reason nothing had been done is because it had been determined that the deputies acted appropriately. But when the heat was on, they had to blame somebody, so Sheriff Chody is the scapegoat. That's what this case is about.
Is this the first time this happened?
To say that this was critical evidence is, again, baloney. There were body cameras, there were car dash mounted cameras, there was an APD chopper in the air that followed Mr. Ambler's fleeing from the deputies. Those videos show completely what happened. There is nothing that was on those live PD videos that could in any way alter the outcome of this case. But to be very clear too, the indictment says that Sheriff Chody destroyed this evidence with intent to keep it from being involved in the investigation. Why in the world would he do that? The videos show that his deputies did nothing wrong. I look forward to trying this case. I'm sorry that Sheriff Chody has to go through it. I'm sorry for Mr. Masur also. Known him for years. He used to work for me early on in his legal career. I know him. I know his family. He's a fine young man.
Sorry for him?
But this is the way the system has to work. We're going to go to trial now, and I look forward to it.
Do you have anything to say to Javier Ambler's family?
Yes, go ask Margaret Moore why the case hasn't been presented to the grand jury before now, and why she is saying that this is critical evidence with LIPD when they have all the other videos that show exactly what happened.
Why does he withhold body camera footage from incidents? I have right here a letter from Friday withholding my body camera footage. I was assaulted by his officers at Salvation Church on the 15th of March. Why does he withhold information? Can you answer me that? Cat out your tongue? Why does he withhold it? I have a letter from the AG right here.
Sir, I don't know who you are or what your circumstance
I
is.
am Lawrence W. Rutt Jr., a victim of assault by his officers. On
Okay.
15 March, Salvation Church. A letter right here from his office, dated Friday, withholding body camera footage from me.
Okay. Sheriff Chody has a few
That's a
words
very good
at
question.
this
You
point.
can answer it?
I don't know anything about
You
this
wanna see
information,
it?
sir.
I can show it to you. Why do you
So-
withhold information?
I'd like to read a statement.
Answer the question first.
I'd like to read a statement on the case, on the indictment, and I'd like to thank everybody for being here. So first, let me start by saying, let me give this conference some perspective. This was not my first run-in with District Attorney Sean Dick.
We're aware of that.
Earlier this year, one of my campaign volunteers was placing yard signs during the March primary that had been requested by my campaign supporters. While delivering these signs, the volunteer accidentally placed a sign at the wrong home. Understandably, the homeowner was unhappy about this, but instead of the homeowner complaining, a known supporter of my opponent who lived nearby filed a complaint claiming intimidation by myself. Since it was an honest mistake made by a volunteer, I expected the matter to be handled quickly. But the DA dragged out this complaint. When I finally asked the DA, Sean Dick, for an update, he said he was considering referring the matter to the Texas Rangers or the Attorney General's office. I couldn't believe it. I still have no update on whether an investigation continues, and all of this was over a yard sign that was mistakenly placed by a volunteer during a campaign. As you can see, this is how petty our district attorney, Sean Dick, has been in the past, so it's no surprise that he's continued to act in a vindictive and politically motivated manner by seeking an indictment in this case. We're now about 1 month from election, and the DA is just now acting on a case that is nearly 2 years old. The facts are very clear, and let me be very clear. I did not tamper with evidence. Quite to the contrary, in fact, in a TV interview by Dan Abrams himself, the host of Live PD, laid out very clearly what he believed happened. He stated that the Williamson County Sheriff's Office requested that the show retain the video of the Ambler incident. He stated that the show had retained the video for a period of time, but that the show was never contacted by either the Williamson County District Attorney or the Travis County District Attorney for access to the video. From the beginning, the Ambler incident has been hampered by prosecutors failing to act and then attempting to pass off responsibility for their inactions of others. In fact, it was only after the body cam video of the Ambler incident was released to the public that the Travis County DA began to move on this case. The DA had taken no action for 19 months. 19 months. So to try to save herself during a runoff election, the DA blamed me, the sheriff, in my office for the delay. But as I stated before, our office participated fully in the investigation launched by the Austin Police Department. We exchanged our evidence with them quickly. There is email correspondence that supports my statements. At no point during this process did the DA reach out to our office for additional information. I ask you this, why didn't Travis County District Attorney Margaret Moore call me personally or reach out to me sometime during that 19-month period she felt she was having any trouble getting anything from our office? Not one phone call, not one email from the Travis County. The answer is obvious. The Travis County District Attorney dropped the ball on the investigation, and when the video surfaced during her campaign, She had to find someone to blame for her own mistakes. It did not work, and the voters turned her out of office. Contrast that with Williamson County Sheriff's Department. When there is a death, it's a standard operating procedure to have internal affairs investigations of the officers involved. We performed our responsibility. We completed our internal affairs investigation. All that remains is for the Travis County DA to complete the criminal inquiry. You reporters in this area right now who have covered this issue, do you know what it could be that I've been charged with or dragged? Do you know what could have been that I dragged my feet on? I asked you that question. Has anyone seen any evidence to link me to this indictment? Any communication that I didn't provide? Or did you just take the word of a DA facing a losing election that her 19th month delay was my fault with zero evidence? Because some of you did. So why are we here? Let me tell you why we're here. We're here because it's a month before the election, my election. Let's review some facts regarding Sean Dick and his performance as a prosecutor for Williamson County. The DA's chief prosecutor who's in charge of grand jury, this person who is responsible for interacting with the grand jury without attorneys present, my defense attorneys present, represented my opponent in a civil case not long ago. In fact, my opponent stated in a recent article that he speaks to the DA's office staff on a regular basis, all the time. Would a DA do anything that would hurt his credibility? I have emails from the DA obtained under the Texas Open Records Act that show him emailing you, some of you reporters, with information that the sheriff's office and certain employees, keep in mind that exchanges, that show him emailing reporters with information of the sheriff's office and certain employees in investigations. Keep in mind that these exchanges happened at the same time during an investigation that he was saying publicly that he was unable to speak because it would compromise the investigation. Yet he's speaking to some reporters behind the scenes. When a DA gives information to a reporter about a case and even gives the reporter phrases being utilized in the anti-police movements, there is a concern. In fact, this is not only an ethical dilemma for DA Sean Dick, but potentially it could be a criminal aspect as well. DA Sean Dick is pushing and misleading stories while pursuing false prosecution. There's another email from DA's office discussing another issue with an outside counsel that is sensitive in nature, yet the narrative tone of that conversation is negative towards the Williamson County Sheriff's Office and the sheriff himself. The advice centers around how to get me, the sheriff, into a courtroom setting. Yet another attempt at criminal charges against me. I find it shocking and disgusting that our district attorney uses his office for political agenda. The very same people who are pushing this case against me are some of the same individuals who refuse to test a bandana in the Michael Morton Act or divulge critical evidence in the Michael Morton case. Unfortunately, Sean Dick continues the sad tradition that exists in Williamson County of indicting people for crimes they didn't commit. And he does this, by the way, while not pursuing many cases that we hand over in this office. I've even turned over excessive use of force cases to the DA and they languish. Instead, he plays politics and uses his office for political infighting. We can see where his priorities are. Dick wants to influence this election, my election. He wants to join the chorus of folks who are attempting to undermine law enforcement, strip them of funds, and make our neighborhoods unsafe. DA Sean Dick knows there is no possible conviction here. He is pursuing an indictment at the time solely for political reasons, and I look forward to prevailing in the election, being exonerated of these false charges, and continuing to protect and serve the people of Williamson County. I am proud to be the sheriff of Williamson County. And just as Sean Dick said once in the Greg Kelly case, I consider this quote that he said, "It is an utter collapse of the criminal justice system."
About my case and damage to my car. You and the assistant sheriff, Robert Chody, why don't you answer my emails?
That's,
Do you have those emails?
I do.
Sean Dick has with these reporters?
We have some information that we'll be passing out to reporters
Why
later
don't you
on.
answer my emails and answer my
I'm sorry?
Does that include these emails?
Yes, sir.
What about my case, Sheriff Chody? And your
Can I ask you a
case on me?
question? I may not be able to answer questions based on my attorney's advice. I want to answer every question, I just can't.
Okay, one of your deputies was indicted. Would you put him on administrative leave depending on the outcome of this investigation?
I'm sorry, say it again?
Pardon me. If one of your deputies was indicted, you would put him on administrative leave pending the outcome of the investigation?
I'm not going to answer that question.
So why don't you answer my email?
I'm not answering any of your questions right now.
The gentleman who spoke first, I didn't get your name, the attorney.
Jerry Morris. G with a G. It's with a G. Jerry.
And you're guilty that you don't want to answer my questions, Sheriff Chody? That your officer you said the force and injured me?
Why is Williamson County, why did they have a contract with Life TV at all?
We're not going to talk about that at this point.
You say that this is all political. You're saying there's zero merit, zero substance, zero evidence
Yes.
of the charges brought before you that the DA Moore, DA get included in this conspiracy to have you charged today for the kidnapping.
That's basically what we're saying. Yeah.
Why did you get those emails then?
Do you realize that some people in the public may find that part of the meeting?
Yeah, I realize that, and that's why we have jury trials, because at jury trials, all the evidence comes out, not just that the prosecutor wants to present to the grand jury. And, we'll be continuing our investigation through the discovery process. We'll find out what the theory of prosecution is. You can't tell from the indictment. If you read the indictment, it makes it sound like Sheriff Chody picked up the phone and called somebody and told them to destroy the evidence, which is absolutely untrue.
Sheriff, this may be a better answer, question for you. Within minutes of Javier Ambler's death, within some time, that night, overnight, the wee hours of the morning, you were calling and had contact with Bill Gravel. What was the substance of this communication?
Let me answer that. My understanding was it was to notify the county judge that the death had taken place.
Wasn't Bill developed by assault?
So,
Coming from church?
if you were calling Bill Gravel, who's got no role in the judicial system, as it involves a case like this with Ambler, why not pick up the phone and call the DA and notify him there's been a death?
It wasn't a Williamson County death.
Well, it started there, and it involved deputies.
It did.
Put hands on Mr. Ambler. We're in Williamson County. They pursued him. This was Williamson County. It happened in Travis. Why not pick up the phone and call the district attorney? Who any reasonable person might say, man, we should know about this, and not a year later.
Pardon?
Can the sheriff answer that?
Well, I just answered it because it was a Travis County death. That's why he didn't notify the Williamson County DA of the death.
Did Sheriff Chody testify before the Williamson County grand jury?
He did not.
We've all seen the video that
Mhm.
we're talking about. Sheriff Chody, did you see anything wrong with your deputy did in that video? Did you see anything that was out of line from those deputies that day?
I'm not going to respond just because they have a case that is pending in Travis County. I don't want to hurt their cause or anything like that.
Sheriff, you said this is a statement, that this is a political statement from Sean. But it's the grand jury that handed it, not Sean did. They saw evidence they heard from more than a dozen witnesses. What do you have to say?
Well, let me answer that. The DA controls the evidence that goes to the grand jury. The defense has no right to be in the grand jury or to cross-examine any witnesses. We have no idea what went on in the grand jury. The old adage is you can indict a ham sandwich. As the prosecutor once told me many years ago, he said, I've never lost an indictment. It is easy to get someone indicted. What has to intervene to stop it from happening is judgment, whether or not it's right to indict a person.
I repeated OJ was found innocent online.
Can you say that you handled Javier Ambler's death to the best of your ability and fairly and justly?
Well, that's
It's not real.
Yeah, let me answer that.
So let me just say this, because I can't answer a lot of questions that I really want to. I think you need to remember too, though, when we talk about the DA, District Attorney Sean Dick, you're talking about someone who picks and chooses what crimes he wants to prosecute and what he doesn't. You're talking about a crime where he had a suspect that he took for family violence, assault with strangulation case that he declined to prosecute, and sometime later that same person shot 3 police officers in Central Texas. And then now we have this case that so these are the issues that we have been dealing with at law enforcement, and I think you go around law enforcement around Central Texas dealing with Williamson County, you'll see just how much we are alike in Travis County justice, that Williamson County is starting to mirror that because of our DA, and it's starting to be frustrating because now you're starting to see leadership being affected for political gain, and that's all I'm going to say at this point. So that's all I'll say.
When your pop assaulted me, why did your IA say your deputies were wrong when they assaulted me? Lieutenant Roscoe said that.
Well,
Why would they say that? Your own IA.
Well, what's next is what we call the discovery process, where we're going to be given the evidence that the prosecution thinks supports their case. There may be some litigation over what they have to give us, because as Mr. Dick said in his press conference, a lot of it occurred before the grand jury. So we may have to file motions to, in effect, get the judge to excuse secrecy to allow us to get the transcripts of the testimony.
Am I remembering correctly, and not word for word, but the gist of it, that Dan Abrams put out a statement saying they destroy that live PD footage after X period of time by terms of the contract. They held on to it for a little while longer and then destroyed it after you said your internal investigation was done.
Let me clarify that. I've talked to attorneys that represent live PD, and I asked them, tell me when Sheriff Robert Chody had any conversation with anyone about the live PD tapes having to do with the Ambler case. And the response was to the effect of that was a misstatement. Sheriff Chody did not have that conversation. We believe it was someone in Sheriff Chody's office. I've since requested the name of the person that they believe had that conversation, and they refused to give it to me.
You're saying he has more robots? He's not in charge of his own deputies?
Sheriff, a couple of questions here. The first one, do you have any plan to step down while this investigation is ongoing?
Absolutely not.
Second part is, and I think Frank tried to ask this earlier, but if you had a deputy charged with a felony,
I won't answer that.
well, I want to ask you.
Well, I'm not going to answer it there, Jody.
If you had a deputy charged with a felony, would you continue to have that deputy patrolling the streets of Williamson County?
Well, it's the same thing, Jody. I mean, you're under investigation by the Rangers for assault too. It's as bogus as that your charge is my charge, is what I would say. For the same assault that you've been charged with over there in Hayes County is the same presence I would take in this case.
I want to clarify who is charged with assault.
Well, the Rangers are investigating an assault case on you just like they were our deputies.
You're listed as a victim of that, just for
I don't know about that.
But, so you're not applying the same standard you would to any other deputy under you?
Well, I think the circumstances are completely different, Jody, but I don't want to get baited into your conversation either. Okay.
What do you say to voters who now doubt your ability to be an effective sheriff?
Well, you know, remember, grand jury is about probable cause. It's not about being convicted or anything at this point. There have been other elected officials who have been indicted as well and still serving. Give me that opportunity in a courtroom to show my innocence. Obviously, everyone knows I don't have to do this. I do this because I truly believe in what we're doing here at Williamson County and the deputies that are here. And we made a lot of good changes here at Williamson County. We've got a lot of negative publicity as well, some at the fault of the very people in the audience right out here. Not all, but some. And there were some things going on in Williamson County that didn't get the transparency before that were just as bad, but the press didn't cover those items because the office or the sheriff before wasn't as transparent before. So I'd say let all the truth come out before you make a decision like that, and you'll see what comes out, and people will realize the truth will prevail.
With the transparency, why don't you
So-
give all cases the same treatment?
Well, Well, what I wanted to ask you is, it seemed plausible to you that Sean Dick didn't know anything about Javier Ambler until May of 2020?
That's what he said in his.
I know what he said. My question to you is, that sound plausible?
I'm not doing the investigation.
Okay. Well, so if you're not going to answer my question, then he's not going to answer yours.
Okay, so answer mine. If you're saying it's
Are we done?
Yeah, we're done.
All right,
Thank you.
all.
I would like to say something as a private citizen of Williamson County.
And now we've reached the conclusion of Sheriff Robert Chody's own press conference in response to what the Travis County and Williamson County District Attorneys had just not too long ago. They were basically held back to back. They're just a few blocks from each other as well, one happening at the historic courthouse in Georgetown, the other one happening here outside the Williamson County Sheriff's Office. What we'll say is that Sheriff Chody did this news conference after he was booked into and released from jail, the same facility that he manages in his capacity. What he is saying now is that he is claiming that the charges brought against him, the indictment from this grand jury in Williamson County, is politically motivated by the Williamson County District Attorney because there was an election coming up in about a month or so. So earlier, Williamson County District Attorney Sean Dick took that question on and talked about, the timing of this, and he said that it had nothing to do with the election. So these are the two arguments being put out there at this time. Sheriff Chody said he, quote, "I did not tamper with evidence," and that is where his charge is stemming from, obviously. He called the Williamson County District Attorney petty and put a lot of this on the Travis County District Attorney Margaret Moore, saying she dropped the ball in the Javier Ambler death case. He is claiming, the sheriff is claiming that Mr. Ambler's death the sheriff is being used as a scapegoat for Javier Ambler's death, even though deputies from his office were a part of the chase and the arrest that happened in Austin back in March of last year involving Javier Ambler. We are going through all this. I mean, this is a lot to kind of deal with this afternoon, so you can please stay with us here on KXAN. We are going to break down everything that's happening. We have a web article that we're updating regularly over on KXAN.com, and if you have the KXAN News app on your smartphone, download it if you don't, because we'll have all that information available as well. We also have multiple crews reporting on what is happening there. As you heard, our investigative reporter Jody Barr was at both of those news conferences. Since they were only about 2 blocks from each other, he was able to make it to both. He is going to turn some live reporting for us at 5 o'clock and 6 o'clock tonight on KXAN News. Turn it over to Channel 36. He will also be updating our web stories online, so you can pay attention to that too. Again, we have all that information available on our website right now. Once again, I'm Will Dupree here in the KXAN Live Studio. Thank you so much for joining our stream. We do appreciate that, and we will see you back here throughout the day with additional updates. Please, everyone, stay safe and stay healthy, and thanks for trusting us here at KXAN to share this information.